Hi everyone, it's Ileana with a tag to share, and I made it using the November card kit from Simon Says Stamp. I am taking the large tree from the stamp set, and the stamp set is called Be Joyful, and I'll be using my new ink pads from Avery L. And I don't have any pigment ink pads. These are my very first ones, and they are really, really awesome. I am stamping in the lemongrass to start with, and I kind of wanted it a little bit darker, so I stamp it a second time. What's really awesome about these ink pads is that they're pigment, and so they're very creamy and they blend really well when you do this technique. I am wiping off in between colors because I don't want to contaminate, and now I am going to use the celery, and I'm not inking up the whole stamp. I'm just kind of holding the ink pad at an angle. Normally when you do the rock and roll technique with stamping, you typically just roll the edge of the stamp into the ink, but since you can't really do that with Misty, you have to do it the opposite way. And so now I'm using the darkest color, which is the jungle, and it just is really, really cool. Look at that. It's just so crisp, and the colors blend so well, and it's just, I am totally in love with these ink pads. Now, this stamp is the snow stamp that comes in the kit, but I'm going to be using it a little bit differently. I'm going to use it to put little Christmas lights onto my Christmas tree. Now, I don't want to remove the tree from the lid because I want to go back and add Versamark to it. The reason why I didn't do it right away is because I'm new to the heat and stick powder from Stampin' Up, and so I didn't know if it would work on top of an embossed image, and so I thought, well, I'll do it first. And since I'm going to be using Versamark to add the heat and stick powder, I want to make sure that this pigment ink is completely dry, and so I go ahead and zap it with my heat gun. And I want to double check to make sure that I don't get the heat and stick powder where I don't want it, and so then I use my embossing buddy to prep my area. Excuse me. Now I'm adding Versamark to the stamp, and it should put the Christmas lights where, randomly, so it's not so obvious, because I kind of struggle with randomness. So now I'm adding the heat and stick powder, and I've never really used this before. I just got this not too long ago, and so I thought I would try it because my local scrapbook store was out of the red glitter embossing powder, and so I thought I would just try red glitter. And so I've used the heat and stick powder, and you heat it up until it's until it's clear, and then it's sticky, and then you want to add your glitter to it, and then you zap it again to set the glitter in place. Now, I wasn't really sure how you know when it's done, and so I just kind of like tested it out with my finger. Now I'm using the dry paintbrush to take away some of the red glitter from areas where I don't want it to stick. I could have just left the stray pieces of glitter there, because I'm pretty sure since there was no heat and stick powder that they would just blow away, but it's that OCD. It always gets you every time. Now I'm just heat setting it, and this is where I have no idea if it's done or not. And so I just go ahead and I rub that one little dot that's kind of off the tree, and so it looks like it's done. And so now I want to go back and add the embossing powder because I just want the tree to shimmer. And I could use the Wink of Stella, but I gotta use my glitter embossing powder. And while I'm using my glitter embossing powder, let me tell you, I made several of these trees because it was just absolutely so fun to use that pigment ink, and it was really, really cool. even after it dries, it just feels velvety under your fingers. And so I have several of these trees set off to the side that I'll be using on a card in a little bit. But in the meantime, we're just going to make this tag. And now I'm going to fussy cut around this tree. Now in a second, after I get done fussy cutting, I will give you a close-up of the tree, and you can see how crisp the image still looks after using Misty. You could still see the little dash lines really clearly. Nothing is really fuzzy or anything like from double stamping. It's just really cool stamping. And so now that that is done, we're going to move on to making the tag. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut 2 tags from the Tag Your It from Lawn Fawn, and it's the larger of the 2 tags that come in the set. And I'm going to take one of the tags and I'm going to emboss it, and I'm trying to pick out a spot on the embossing folder where I'm going to get a lot of the little snowflakes on there. I don't want large snowflakes because then it'll be too overwhelming for a tiny tag, but that way there's plenty of detail in the tag. And since it's going to be bumpy, I need a smooth place to add my stamping for the back, and so I'll be using the other stamp, the other tag to stamp the to and from. So I'm kind of just giving myself an indication of where to put my stamps. That way I know that they're straight. I'm using the grid lines on the paper. I usually use the grid lines on the paper first, and then I just double check with the grid lines on the lid, but typically the lines on the paper work just fine. And so now I'm just going to stamp the to and from, and I'll be using the Avery L black pigment, which is called New Moon. And it does dry very quickly. It's almost like the Versamark, and it's just as crisp, at least I think so. And I'll be using that to stamp the to and from, and I must be looking for my ink pad because I had to go get it. And so I just want to make sure that I mounted them straight, and so I just inked up my paper. And the grid paper that I sell, it's, you know, really nice quality. At least I think you can just keep using it over and over again. I've probably made a few things on this one sheet, and so it lasts a long time. And plus you don't have to use a sheet each time, a fresh one each time. You can just use the same one over and over again, or even flip it over. So now I'm taking a piece of scrap paper, and I just cut out some white because I want to put a hill on the bottom. But before I cut the hill, I want to make sure that I give myself enough room to put the sentiment, and I am using the sentiment from the Wintry Gifts stamp set from Lawn Fawn. The stamp set come in the Be Joyful set. The only one that would fit in that space was the Happy Holidays, and I thought it was a little too whimsical for the tag I was making, and so that's why I decided to use this other one. You could use it, but I just didn't. I wasn't in the mood to use that one. And so now I'm just stamping the Merry Christmas with the Schoolhouse Red, I think is what it was. Now I want to add some dash lines around the edge of my tag just so that, just to add a little more detail, but because it's embossed, I know that my tick marks will be wonky, and so what I did is that I put the tag back into the die, and I just used the edge of the die to line up my Jelly Roll pen. And so now I'm doing the same thing with the back of the tag just so that it's consistent. And the stamp set comes with an outline, but since I had done the tick lines, the faux stitching on the front, so I wanted to be consistent, and I did it on the back. And so now I am trying to, I'm getting ready to cut my snow hills, and these are called, what are these called? The Stitched Hillside Border. And I'm using these to just do the hillside, and it puts a nice little stitched edge to it too. And so now that I have that all cut, now I'm trying to figure out whether I want the tree behind or in front of, and but I need to put a star on the top of it. And so I just take a little wood veneer star, and I believe these are Studio Calico, and I'm using the Encore gold metallic ink, and I got this from Paper Tray Ink a while back. And so I am just going to ink that up in gold, and then I'm going to take my Wow Gold Glitter Embossing Powder. And what I did was I just stuck it to a piece of scratch paper so that I wouldn't burn my fingers. I've tried making these before using my tweezers, and it just seems to fly all over the place. And so I'm just going to pour a little bit of the powder onto my star, and then I will use that little scratch piece of paper to hold my star while I use the heat gun. And the first time that I used the gold glitter embossing powder, I overheated it, and then all of the shimmery was gone, and so I had to throw that little star away. Actually, no, I didn't. I just embossed it again and stuck another layer on, and it saved my star. Okay, so now I need to assemble my tag, and I am just taking my roll of foam tape, and I just have a small strip, and I'm just going to use that piece there. And I am being generous with the foam because it's a tag, and I just want it to be sturdy. And so I'm just going to adhere the snowy hill to the bottom of the card. It shouldn't be too hard because I use the same die. And once that's in place, I have to make the important decision as to where to put the tree. Does the tree go behind the hill, or does the tree go in front of the hill? And even those little minor details, sometimes I overthink, but I digress. Now I need to add the little reinforcer that goes on the top of the tag, and I just used a scrap piece of red cardstock that I just had in my scrap drawer. So I went to use my adhesive, and then it was clogged, and so I just squirted it. I just wanted to squeeze it a little bit to try to get it going, and then a huge glob came out on this little scratch piece of backing. And so now I had to use my tweezers because, you know, I can't waste that glue that's on there. And so I used my tweezers to add that tiny little reinforcer onto my tag. Now, here we go. This is part where I can't figure out top or behind. And so I actually edited out some of that because it was just taking me forever to figure out what I wanted to do. So I stared at it until I settled on behind. And I figured behind would be best because then I would have to figure out how am I going to mount that little gold star if it's mounted on foam. So here we go. Had to double check one more time. So now I'm just adding my ATG to the back of the Christmas tree, and that usually sticks pretty good, and so even with the texture. And so now I got to add my little star, and I go to add a little glob of glue, and then I remember, oh wait, I have this huge little puddle over here. So I just grab my tweezers, and I can't get my tweezers to go, and so then I use my pickup stick, and then I just dip it in, and then the pickup stick actually takes off a little chunk of my embossing. And so I'm, you know, like totally annoyed about it. And so I go ahead and I grab my Versamark pen. See, I'm kind of annoyed there. It's like, oh, what happened? So I have to double check by looking under that magnifying glass that comes with my lamp, and I just have to go back and I have to fix it because I just can't leave it alone. And so now I have to figure out how am I going to get some of that onto my star, and so I just use the edge of my craft knife to add more glitter back to my star. And now I have to emboss that again, and you can't tell. So once again, there's my OCD wanting to make everything perfect. And so now I need to add my string, and oh no, first I got to add the back of my tag before I add the string. And I'm just going to marry the two pieces together. And now I debate about which string to use, and I had all my strings out, and so I ended up using the gold metallic one that Lawn Fawn carries. I ended up trying the red, the Lawn Fawn red, but it was a little too orangey for the red that was in the tag, and then I went and grabbed the one from the Twinery and it just didn't match, and so I just decided to go ahead and go with the gold. The red would have been too much red, and so I ended up just using the hemp with the gold from Lawn Fawn, and it's really nice twine. I'm really impressed with the kind of twine that they put out. And so I'm just tying a knot at the very end, and as I'm tying the knot, I'm just kind of thinking, am I done? Am I done? I'm just not sure. And so that's why I fiddle for a long time with the little knot, because that's what I do when I think. And so I think I'm done. And thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking by this long video for this tag. Be sure you head on over to the blog and be sure you give my video a thumbs up. Have a great day.